How many of you use Twitter? Okay, 1, 2, 3 and a half. 3 and a handshake. 3 and a handshake. Awesome. How many of you have tried to use any other sort of social media in classes? Got 1, 2, 3. Success? Keep your hand up if you had success.
Oh, when I was in college, I used Facebook, like private group.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Some instructors had the private group thing. It actually worked pretty well because all the students did have to post it to their public profile. Let's just talk about things inside.
Because so it was separate. There was that list there, but you could get into it from your personal one.
Yeah.
But got
And
it.
you could create an anonymous account if you wanted.
Yeah. All right. Let me share.
So I haven't really used Twitter, but can you tweet privately or no?
You can direct message.
You can, yeah, you
Can you
can.
create a direct message group?
I don't think so.
So you can only direct message to one person?
Well,
Yeah.
you can direct message to a few people, but you're not going to direct message 100 people. It
Because you
doesn't-
still only have 140 characters, right? So
Still,
By the time
yeah.
you're done listing the people you would want to direct message, you have no characters left.
I've heard that they're going to change the limit.
I heard that too.
I'm curious.
Cannot hold.
Hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but even if you direct message somebody, it's still public because if someone just goes to your feed, they can see all the messages that you have sent out, even if they're direct messages,
I
right?
do not believe that is true.
I don't think that's true.
No?
No, I think direct messages are private.
Mhm.
Nobody
That's
else can
true.
see them.
It would be
Not
much
on
more
those times,
cumbersome
yeah.
to do it that way than in the Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
And the Facebook groups you can keep as private just to your class.
Or
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about using like Google, the Google Plus?
Google Circle?
Yeah, circle group?
It's not doing really well with undergrads, and actually a lot of my peers aren't using Google Plus either.
I
And
just started using it because my mom is posting all my baby stuff to it. So she's forcing me to use Google Plus.
But do we all have an account for that?
And this is one of the things that I put in the activity sheet is I know a lot of instructors are like, well, I want them to be engaged, but I don't want to force them to create a new account or do anything like that. So
Yeah.
the solution there is, by nature of having a net ID, UW-Madison gives everybody the Google Drive, which is, unlimited storage, which, at some point students are like, okay, that's good because my laptop crashed last week and it's nice to have that. But also the Google Plus access. So that's something that instructors can, without too much issue, say, well, I'm not forcing you to create something, I'm just forcing you to use what you already have here on campus because it's a campus-supported tool. So it might be an easier way to get over that. However, we still have that issue of, great, so they've got this account, will they use it? Or are they so busy using their own personal account that they won't use it? And the ideas that I've seen on that are simply you almost have to force them to do that. I wanted to quick point out that on the Teaching Academy page, you can get to this page that we have for today, which has the link to the activity sheet. The activity sheet is, the link that's on your printed activity sheet is wrong. It's actually SOC Media, ATL-SOC Media, for the social media activity sheet. But I want to talk a little bit about some of these options. So it's easy to use Twitter or Facebook or some of these other things to it's easy to get an account. And we have an activity sheet from the last Twitter presentation that's back there somewhere, I believe. I know that we brought it or put it in the Bible. So if you want the details on how to set up a Twitter account, how to use some of the tools that she was talking about for in-class, Twitter use for in-class, today's meet, has anyone used today's meet? Things like that you can actually run in class and have an in-class back channel thing. So as you're up here lecturing or talking or they're doing groups, people can contribute to that without sort of taking up class time, raising their hand. They can have that, you had a term for it, because it's asynchronous, You have a little bit more time to think about what you write.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be put on the spot and be like, boy, I've got to talk in front of all these people now. What was I going to say? I forgot, totally forgot. Embarrassment. And then I shut down for the rest of the time. So you can think about what you do before you hit send. Mike?
So does the instructor then answer it if it's a question, or are there TAs that answer it?
Some of the strategies are that because it's flying on the screen behind you or on a screen behind you, like in this classroom, it'd be great because you can have the back channel chat happening here and have your lecturer or the main activity that they're engaged in here, or vice versa. So if a question comes up, the instructor can say, oh, we've got a good question from either anonymous whoever, or from Lauren, raises a good question if she wants to put her name on that.
So can you flip, like if the question's over there and the presentation's there, you can...
In this classroom, it's easy to flip. Not all classrooms are as beautiful as this one, of course. Or you can have TAs who have to come for the lecture anyway and should sort of be paying attention, but oftentimes they're sitting in the back row, just kind of sitting there. But they could be the people that are answering the questions, good point, Lauren, here's a resource, and then it comes to her automatically so that it's just-in-time learning. The questions that they have can be answered immediately, but they don't have to take up the class time. So people will feel like they have a dumb question. They might not want to share that dumb question with everybody in the class, but they could share the dumb question here on the Twitter feed or back channel anonymously.
So it kind of makes it more like a webinar.
It's, in many ways, it's like a webinar, yeah. That sort of ongoing chat thing. Peter?
It seems like one of the problems is that people had their own account already, and they don't want to mix their persona that they already created with the new persona.
Yes.
So how about just saying, well, we have separate accounts and make them anonymous?
Yeah.
Just for the class, and that would get rid of that complete conflict there.
For sure, we can definitely decide to do that. And based on my experience, I would recommend it. John and I were talking about the only difficulty is that when you're on a mobile platform, even on a laptop, I think it's hard to switch. It's kind of cumbersome to switch, but we can work around that.
I think they'll forget to switch too.
Or they might forget to switch. Yeah.
Which,
And Google's made it a lot easier now. But before, I mean, that only happened, I don't know, in the last few months, right?
Yeah, it's slowly evolving to get easier and easier. And Google especially, still a little bit cumbersome with Twitter. But I know people that have like multiple Facebook accounts, and their phone Facebook account is their dog's Facebook account, and their laptop Facebook account is their Facebook account, and that way they can just go back and forth that way. Seems cumbersome to me, but there are these sort of workarounds and strategies that people use for that. One of the things that I think is an opportunity is to actually have them create a professional account and say, okay, I recognize that you have individual accounts. We're not going to use that. I'm not going to ask you to divulge your information. And I'm curious, how this works with your hyperpersonal processes, because part of it is it's hyperpersonal, you need to be authentic, and yet on the other hand, your students, many of them are starting to build their resumes and they're starting to build their self-presentation for the world as professionals stepping out into, so they want to sort of leave behind the Facebook drinking posts and things like that.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for us in academia and at university to say, hey, use this Google Plus Whisk thing as a social media presentation platform and start filling it up in the class. So use it, present yourself professionally here, maybe not authentically, but professionally as a member of, whatever field that you're going into as an emerging sort of young junior member of that field, and start to build rapport with other professionals in the field through this professional account.
I think that's a great idea, and it would work better than in my class in more advanced classes. So, I mean, I get students from all majors. It's a required Comm B class, so it's not like they're going to get into the interpersonal communication arena. But if they're in an upper level seminar, I love the idea of starting to build your professional credentials and your professional Twitter. In terms of sociability, with a hyper-personal, we're trying to relate to each other as people. So an element of personal disclosure might also be necessary, which adds another layer of complexity. So if you want to do that, maybe you want to separate that from a professional account.
But the professional account needs some authenticity as well, right? And self-disclosure as well. I mean, otherwise it's going to look like a bot or you know, like a marketing campaign. So one of the our colleagues, Tanya Justin, talks a lot about authenticity in online spaces, and she's from the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And so her focus is, you know, don't try to be cool with kids. Be Tanya Justin, be Mike Farnham, be Chris Lupton, and don't, you know, divulge everything, of course, because you're in a public platform that is a professional platform, but divulge enough that people can say, oh, Catalina's human. That's good.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Do you know if it's possible to use LinkedIn as a way to communicate? Is there like private group messages on there?
Speaking of professional, yeah.
Because LinkedIn, I just created one last week. I still don't know what goes on in LinkedIn yet. But it might be, because you're talking about creating a professional account, but that's kind of what LinkedIn is for.
Yep.
So it might be good for them to get used to LinkedIn in their undergrad years and get used to using it. I know there's a lot of professional groups and things to do on there. I just haven't figured it all out yet. I don't know if anyone else has LinkedIn.
I'm in LinkedIn and I'm in some of those groups, so I get the emails from them about discussions on whatever the different topics or groups that I'm in. I've never thought of it as an academic.
Because couldn't you just create like a class group?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
272 or whatever?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, I think people think of the different social tools for different purposes. So yes, it is possible to do that in LinkedIn. I think a lot of people think of LinkedIn as, I need a job, that's where I'm going to go to find my connections to find a job. Whereas they look at Facebook maybe on a more personal connection level, plus possibly professional groups that are in there. Twitter, you know, you were saying something interesting about how if they're typing it, they take more time than if they just say something. But I also see with Twitter, you take more time to think about what you're saying because you're limited by the characters.
Yeah.
When you stop being limited by the characters in a place like Facebook, people write anything.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily siphon what they're writing before they post it.
That's right. It's in a way it's a forced editability with a character limit. You have to fit your thoughts into this very constrained space.
Right.
So you do have to think about it a little bit more. Which is an advantage of Twitter.
Text messaging in a sense. So text messaging now, with the way technology is, you start to type something and it guesses the full word, even if you're trying to, you know, use, and then it comes in 4 different parts if you're going from Android to iPhone or whatever. But
so the efficiency or that abbreviated nature of Twitter is one of the reasons that it's so popular or favored by, like, the Writing Center will say, well, and this was your thought too, can you take ideas from the readings and get them down into this
skill to make it concise.
It's a huge skill, and it's it's a great writing skill. Otherwise, because we've all read papers that they just go on and on and on and on, and they have to fill 2 pages or 5 pages or whatever. Yeah. And we hate reading them.
Who's the historical figure who said, I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time? Somebody did.
What about the idea of keeping the accounts anonymous? You know, so that, I mean, you could still have self-disclosure and stuff, but without a name attached to it. And so then what you get is you might get more participation because people don't, you know, they can share things without feeling that they're attached.
That's an idea to play with, and there's 2 levels of anonymity: anonymity to each other as students, and anonymity to us as instructors. And if they're anonymous to us as instructors, I'm just worried about how to incentivize them to participate. I mean, maybe they'll participate. I don't know.
But you could, I mean, say if you had 150 students and you have account
Mm-hmm.
A1 for 850, then you can still see that everybody tweeted once a week or whatever you want.
But not who
you can
did
still
it,
see
yeah.
what they did, but
Yeah.
and everybody else can benefit from, everybody else's summary of insight.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. There's also a negative side to things that I typically don't think about because I'm such a lover of these technologies, but anonymity has been shown to promote two things. First is self-disclosure, which is great for our purposes, and second is disinhibited behavior. People saying rude and nasty things that they wouldn't normally say. So I mean, it's a possibility to encounter tweets of the nature of "this class totally sucks," and I hate it. So that's something to worry about, at least something that I worry about. Margaret.
If you're using the tweets for anything that you're going to be assessing, even to like track how many times they tweet or whatever, you could have the students be anonymous to each other, but not to you. Right? But you have to know what their Twitter handle is that you're using.
Yeah.
And that'll cut down on, I would imagine,
The disinhibited behavior.
the flaming and that kind of nasty behavior, because they know that you know who they are, even if their fellow student doesn't know.
Oh yeah, I think that's a really interesting psychological combination that I'd be interested in exploring. See what they say to one another, and if there's a great deal of self-disclosure, and if at least psychologically they feel closer to one another, which would be an advantage. Yeah.
A little bit different, but
Yeah.
I teach in the psychology department.
Oh, cool.
Students,
Great.
and they have to turn in written homework to me every day, and they disclose incredibly personal things about their therapy and their demonstrations, and they know that I say them in class. But when I talk about it in class,
It's anonymous.
I don't say which student wrote it. No, I always know who wrote it, and they always know I'm going to talk about it in the whole class. They share tons of stuff that day.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I get, whenever I give talks to the community, because I study psychology, people come to me all the time and tell me their life story. It's really great. There's a level of trust there, I think, with a professor in that kind of a class. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, which plays that into your idea. Then,
Yeah. There's a certain level of editing so that it's still a safe space.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a safe person, so you're part of the safe space.
Yes.
That their fellow students don't have to know.
Right.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I wanted to share this one's called Twitterfall, and basically you just type in a hashtag that you want to search, and all of the tweets will just sort of start to show up on it. And it's kind of a fun way to sort of look at sort of things as they come in. Another one that we've used at the Teaching and Learning Symposium a few years is called TweetBeam, and it's the same thing. You type in any tag that you want, a hashtag that you want to do, and then it'll show up and it'll just sort of rotate through the most recent things that people have used for that. So having something like this along with a specific hashtag, this one's TwitterGo, but it could be any hashtag, sort of just available for in-class back-channel communication might be a way to do that. Now, this also posts their picture prominently in the background, and you can kind of see all of the different people that are almost a word cloud sort of thing.
Okay, wait, and so those are direct messages, aren't they?
No,
Directed to
no.
the person?
Those are replies. So replies are shared, but direct messages are not.
Right, so a direct message starts with a D.
Whereas
Oh.
a reply is an @ in the person's name.
See what I'm learning today? Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so don't send private things to the app.
I'm not going to send private things to Twitter anyway, but I was just wondering about.
From these then, can you actually post a message from these, like TwitterGo or Twitterfall?
No.
Or
You have to
just for
pure tweet.
viewing? It's pure
It's-
viewing tweets,
Yep.
not, okay.
And they can be super distracting. So if I'm up here talking and I look over here, I see that you guys are all watching the new things that are happening, right?
Right.
And so for me, I'm feeling like, hey, wait, look at me, pay attention to me. So in some, like that's a big downfall for this kind of a thing, especially this one. It's so interactive, like face and little side thing.
TweetBeam.
Or Twitterfall is not as interactive, but still things pop up all the time, and it's a little bit harder to read. But
Does anybody besides me have trouble with hashtags? Because I feel like we youth of this country have destroyed the whole purpose of them.
They're so ironic these days. The hashtags are so ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hashtag everything, which makes it hard to actually use it as a search tool for the, you know, the purposes that you were talking about.
Yeah. And sorry. No, I said I just imposed the hashtag in my class.
Where they have to use a specific
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so they
But
find each other.
Even then, there are times when I'll follow a specific one and somebody else decided to use it for something completely different than what I was trying to follow.
I mean, it's part of the social media, right? Is that you don't get a monopoly on a hashtag.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I've seen people put what annoys me, like, I don't care if somebody uses it for another legit purpose, but when they just hashtag, like, Justin Bieber in their picture of, like, a lake, because they know if they hashtag in Justin Bieber, then a lot of people are going to see it, right? So they're, like, using hashtags to, like,
Promote.
using trending
Trend
hashtags to just get people to their stuff,
Yeah.
instead of using it to
Yeah, it
actually
means
curate
something.
material.
Right.
That's what makes me
Well, it used to be that people would like search to find out if that hashtag was taken
Right.
before they would assign it for a class purpose or a conference or whatever. And now people just hashtag everything.
A really good example of that is the Association for Experiential Education, AEE, is the same hashtag that the Adult Entertainment Expo uses.
Oh, that's.
So one of the things when we had the AEE conference, we're like, yeah, let's not use that hashtag. Let's use a different
And
hashtag.
warn everybody that
Right.
if you use that hashtag, that'll be dangerous.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of a great example of kids these days, right?